Thank you for tuning in to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast, a no judgment zone podcast that covers lifestyle, entertainment, news, and sports. Even though KC doesn't watch sports, but these are minor details. By the way, he reads tarot cards too. Yes, I really mean it. He reads tarot cards too. And now, the host you've tuned in for, KC Phoenix.
Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix. And I'm doing a short article. I came across this article this morning, and I was like, wow. I put the explicit on here because I glanced over the article. Usually when I read the news articles, I'm finding out for the first time as you are finding out for the first time while I'm reading it. But I decided to just glance over the article. And I was like, you know what? Let me put the explicit on this just in case. Because, yeah, you're going to see what I'm talking about in a minute. If you have any kids in the room, they're your kids. Use your discretion how you want to proceed. I will say that. Before I go any further, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. All right. So, I was glancing through articles because I was like, oh, I think I want to do a news article. And I was considering doing a news article for tomorrow because I hadn't done one. You know, I didn't do one yesterday. And I was like, okay. And then I had seen this and I'm like, wait, what? So here we are with this. So yes, bees that eat meat. You can't make this up. You really, really can't. Let me go ahead and, like I said, it's a short article, but so the title of the article is Can't Beat, BEE-T, meat. Bees feasting on rotting flesh mystify scientists. They may not sting, but we'd rather not go anywhere near these bees. Bees, you know them, you love them. They're the good little guys always buzzing around, slurping up nectar from flowers and making honey. Unless they're vulture bees. Then they'll prefer a nice chunk of flesh to a colorful flower. Jessica Maccaro is a PhD student in etymology at University of California, Riverside, who recently published a new study on vulture bees. In an interview with Insider, she used the highly scientific term super crazy to describe these buzzers. The easiest way to think about bees is that they are vegetarian wasps. They evolved from wasps. Literally, what differentiates them from wasps has been that they're vegetarians, Maccaro said. Vulture bees, however, tell you to stick your bee stereotypes where the sun doesn't shine. And even though we call wasps, okay, that's a typo. And even though we know wasps are complete psychos, the vulture bees are even more hardcore. Maccaro explained that even wasps want their meat fresh. Vulture bees, however, demand to have their steak nicely rotted. Ew. Okay. If you serve them meat that's not sufficiently decomposed, they will make it rot themselves. Oh yeah, and the adult bees don't eat the meat. They feed it to their babies, meaty honey. It's not weird enough that these bees consume meat from rotted carcasses. What's even more amazing is that they stay alive while doing so, said Maccaro. The environment on a dead body is really toxic. That's a major thing to overcome to be able to eat, she explained. Naturally, the bees' lifestyle brought up the question of how exactly do they keep it up. To find the answer, Macaro and her team ventured into the jungles of Costa Rica. Okay, we're going to mark Costa Rica off the list of places to visit now. There, they left chunks of raw chicken hanging from trees. And sure enough, in a couple of days, the chicken pieces started attracting the long-legged stingless vulture bees. The bees have pouches in their back legs, just like normal bees. But instead of stuffing their little baskets full of pollen, they filled them with chunks of chicken. They had little chicken baskets, said Quinn McFrederick, a UCR etymologist, in a press release. Some individuals didn't bother with the baskets, though. They just swallowed whatever they could chew off. The bees then returned to their nest, where they vomited up their cargo and stuffed it into specialized pods. Scientists aren't exactly sure what happens to the meat in those pods, but they do know that it comes out 2 weeks later as a honey-like viscous... Is that vicious? Sludge. Or viscous. Sludge. The difference is that instead of yummy nectar, the honey is made of decomposed flesh. You probably don't want to add that to your cup of tea. The scientists had another motive with their chicken baits, apart from just offering the bees a dinner, though. They collected some of them to study their guts and see what makes them tick, to see exactly how unique vulture bees are. The researchers also caught some regular old-fashioned honeybees and some that feed on both meat and pollen. And sure enough, there was quite a difference. According to McFrederick, the vulture bees' insides are full of acid-producing bacteria like lactobacillus and carnobacterium. These bacteria are similar to the ones found in actual vultures, as well as hyenas and other carrion feeders, or that would be carrion feeders, I guess, presumably to help protect them from pathogens that show up on carrion. He said, so vulture bees share more with birds than just the name. It makes sense, though. As Macaro pointed out, the decomposed meat would quickly kill them without the extra layer of protection. We already can see that the microbiome is super important for bees for all these basic functions that we humans usually just kind of do ourselves, said Macaro. The researchers have now solved the mystery of how the bees can stomach their meat. But there's another mystery that needs solving. What exactly happens in those pods over the 2 weeks the meat sits in there? And why can't the bees eat the meat when it's fresh? They store the meat and they seal the pods and they don't touch them for 2 weeks. And then they can eat the meat. We're really curious about what's happening, Macaro said. To find the answers, Macaro and her team are now planning a trip to French Guiana. We'll update you on that once they find something out. Okay, I've never heard of vulture bees before. And this is crazy. And I was joking with the Costa Rica thing, obviously, because clearly from the article, they only eat flesh that is rotten. They're not going to eat, like, fresh meat. So, yeah, you don't have to worry about anything until after the fact. And after the fact, there's nothing that you could worry about because it's after the fact. You know what I'm saying? But I just thought that was interesting. I've never heard of vulture bees before. So I thought this article was interesting. Just wanted to share it with people because I'm like, if I've never heard of vulture bees, maybe there's someone in my audience who hasn't heard of vulture bees, and now they can have something to talk about with someone else. Because I knew wasps eat whatever. I knew that. I knew that wasps are not vegetarians. That I knew. But with the bees, I'm like, oh, well, no, they're flower things. They do the vegetables and stuff. But vulture bees, and it's almost like roaches. Roaches eat rotted meat too. some people don't know that. Also, some roaches bite. I had seen an article about that. It's like the people were on the ship. It was either sailors or something like that, where they had to deal with roaches. And some of the stories, and it's anecdotal, but they were saying that some of the roaches actually did bite. So we'll see what happens. But the vulture bees, that's the thing. Now, let me do some quick housekeeping before I wrap this up. I mentioned this before in one of my other episodes. The Christmas with KC contest, I'm working out the details. But one of the details is to be part of the contest, you have to sign up for the email list. So I'm in the process of debating how I want to do all of that, but that will be one of the criteria. And also, even after the contest is over with, I would love for all of my listeners to sign up for the email list. That way you will know what's going on with the Keeping It Real with KC podcast and all of that other jazzy stuff. And who knows, there may be a situation where I'm not doing just a Christmas contest. It may just be a random contest in general. Maybe when spring gets here, I'll do a spring contest or something of that nature. Who knows? But one of the requirements for the Christmas with KC contest will be signing up for the email list. Just a heads up. So anyways, let me go ahead and get going. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting the podcast. I appreciate you more than you will ever know. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Until next time, be blessed.